Hi, my name is Mark Lloyd. I perform under the name Marksman Lloyd. I'm a hip hop artist and spoken word poet, and I'm a Sandgropers. I was born in Albany. Lived there till I was 4. First memory is a family friend who was my age, or my parents' family friend's kid, smacking me on the head with a shovel. That happened in Albany. So when I think of Albany, I picture that shovel coming down on top of me. Yeah, violence. To date, I would have to say the most difficult thing is being diagnosed with a life-threatening heart condition. I think that takes the cake pretty easily. That in itself was, when I got the news, was out of nowhere because there was no history of that in our family. And I was running on a treadmill and I fainted. I fainted during the run and thought I was just maybe sick or maybe tired or just pushed myself too much, but found out through stress tests and stuff that it was actually in my heart. I grew up like an athlete, like I was a good footy player, good soccer player, went on to be like a long distance runner. And then at 25, been told that you got to stop all of that forever. Like you have this life-threatening thing out of nowhere, super scary. And then 5 years later, as a result, I had a defib put into my chest. And 5 years after that, I was on stage and my heart went into an arrhythmia and my defib shocked me. Like, the paramedics have the defib on the chest. It's like that. Got shocked probably about 40 times, maybe a bit more than that. And really had to like confront death in a real way. I know that's macabre, but it was that. And I'd already been like struggling with the limitations of when you get a diagnosis like that, it's really like you die a tiny death because you lose such a big part of yourself and there's such a big freedom and such a like, you lose your innocence as well. Like the world is no longer, well, not no longer, but it's not as, you're not as optimistic and everything doesn't seem so possible. It's like all of a sudden you're given these really strict limitations. That in itself is enough to bear. But then having the near-death experience in the midst of that, that knocked me for 6. Like then, it was full-on PTSD, full-on anxiety, all the like, I didn't collapse. I was conscious the entire time. So it was me being on stage, performing like I normally do. And it's funny because I grew up, shy and introverted. I still am. It took me so long to get comfortable being on stage, right? Like years of just throwing myself into it and being horrible at it until chipping away and getting all right. And then all of a sudden, the nervousness isn't the audience anymore. It's like the condition, this thing going on inside me. And so it was fine for the first few minutes and I felt my heart go into an arrhythmia. That feels like your breathing goes short. You can feel, almost feels like an anxiety attack. When people have anxiety attacks, they're always told, don't worry, you're all right. It's going to come down. For me, it's like, maybe not. Maybe you won't be all right. Yeah. So that you feel that and, you start sweating. It's quite easy to tell. It's uncomfortable. I just tried to get off stage as quickly as possible. I had a friend there in the crowd. She's a singer as well. She'd been up singing. And I just asked her to come out the front with me. And I was trying to make my way through the venue to the front. But as I was walking out, this started going off. And I remember people seeing it, like, because when it goes off, it really jolts you. It's like, they say it's like getting kicked in the chest by a horse. So everyone saw it, like everyone standing in front of me while I was walking out. And they all kind of like screamed and, like, what the hell? But I just continued to make my way out to the front. She came with me. A few of the staff at the venue came and I'm just sitting there at the front of this venue trying to sip on a water, but this thing keeps shocking me. So I keep throwing water on myself. So I'm soaked. As they're all, you can see the panic in their eyes. They're all looking at me like, this guy's about to die, and you can see that. I think that's the scarier thing, the look in everyone else's eyes, because, they all don't know what to do. They're on the phone to the ambulance. This girl's praying for me. That helped a lot, having someone there praying for me. Got this word tattooed on my chest, shalom, peace, or, hello in Hebrew, but also peace for me. And I remember just, I kept repeating that. And Yeah. One shock is usually all you need because that like resets your heart. The idea is that it takes you out of the rhythm that you're in and resets your heart. But for whatever reason, it didn't work. You know, you know, like the little thing Iron Man has in his chest, like that, except it definitely doesn't make you feel more powerful. I would say I've navigated it as best I can, which a lot of the time means pretty badly, to be honest. Like for a while, I was self-medicating, and when you've got PTSD, you know, it can be described what PTSD is like, but until you feel it, like living in fight or flight, like without reprieve all day, every day. I explain it like, you know, when you watch those like rock climbing videos and someone's climbing without a rope and you feel like sweaty in your hands, you feel kind of nervous. It's like times that by 100 and just live in that. And it's exhausting and scary, and you lose like your creative output, you know, like when you're just in survival mode, it's really hard to think about writing songs, think about like being creative, or you kind of need baseline feeling safe to be able to do anything inventive, creative like that. So it was really just like battening down the hatches and just weathering the storm for a few years. And, you know, that was, I delved back into alcoholism. You know, I'd kind of beaten that and was kind of on the straight and narrow. But, you know, you look at soldiers who come back from war, the amount that fall into substance abuse, alcoholism, opioid, whatever it might be, it's like, it's a real problem. And when you're in it, you get it, right? Because you just don't want to feel it. You just want to feel numb. It'd be better not to feel anything than be in that place. It's tormenting. But, you know, we're lucky, like, I guess being in WA for one, for our healthcare system, and the fact that I've got access to good psychs and good people. I would say it's the people community. I would say community, more so than, you know, don't get me wrong, psychiatrists are great, psychologists has been great, but that's like an hour of a week. You know, it's one thing to leave there feeling, you know, mildly peaceful, whatever it might be, for half an hour, but then you've got to face the rest of the week. It's always those, like, you know, you're by yourself at 4 p.m. on a Tuesday, like just trying to get through it. It's been the people that have stuck by me. And I know that sounds cliche, but it's funny when you go through something life-changing like that, and all of a sudden you can't be the life of the party anymore, or not that I ever was, but you can't be the, like, your fun self all the time. You know, you really see who actually cares about you, like who's there because they love you without needing you to give anything back or whatever. So it's been cool to see the amount of people who actually do care. It's been hard to see the amount of people who fell by the wayside, because that was a lot as well. But I also get it, you know, it's a scary thing. And I think a lot of people don't want to confront the fact that death is a part of life and we're all going to die someday. And when there's someone in your friendship circle, whatever your group, that like makes that very apparent to you, I think it can freak people out. But I would say you know, all the Stoics talk about when you can contemplate or consider the fact that you're not immortal, that you do, you know, like it does change your perspective on like where your focus is at in life and what's really important. I mean, I spent so long just wanting to blow up and be famous and have all these accolades and things happen. And, you know, you go through something like this and it's like, I just want to feel good and peaceful and be around the people that I care about and get as far away as I can from the people who don't care about me at all and are only around me because of the other exterior. I remember my psychologist asking me, it was like a philosophical question. He was like, why do you think God kept you alive? In the sense, like, why do you think you didn't die when this thing happened? Why do you think you're still here? And when I thought about it, I was thinking about the work I do in schools or working with young people, disengaged people, at-risk youth, and going in, running workshops, teaching them how to write songs, teaching them how to use lyrics as a form of therapy, seeing kids go from not knowing how to express themselves to coming out, having written a song and being able to talk about some of their own struggles and turmoil in their own life. And I really think when I look back at when all was said and done, that'll be the stuff that I'm most proud of, that I think was the most important. And I think that that's what I'm, proud of. It's so, as an artist, I think any artist can tell you, it becomes so, it can be so narcissistic and, self-aggrandizing, and you're constantly thinking, how do I market myself? How do I make people look at me? How do I get attention? And to be able to go and do something where you're still using your creativity, you're still in that world, but you're kind of helping others to do it, facilitating that. There's just something, I don't know, realer about it, something deeper about it. And it's interesting to kind of, I don't know if I'm on the other side of all of this stuff, but I'm definitely in a better place. And that can change from day to day, but for the most part, in a better place. When you lose everything, you know what it feels like you get to a point where you're like, now no one can take anything away from me anymore, because everything evaporated, right? Like the career, I had to take a break from performing, and that was my livelihood, all of that. And I had to go back to, like, after the incident happened, I had to move back home for a while, and I was like on hiatus from life. But it shows you that you can be there and still build again. And I think when you build again, you have a focus on, like, what's actually important to me. And again, all the stuff that is ancillary falls by the wayside. And that's kind of cool, because you don't have, like, you're not like constantly chasing that carrot. It's kind of, I do things on my own timeline now. I'm not in such a rush for everything. And when it happens, it happens. If it happens, it happens. And you're just trying to, enjoy it as you go. A lot of my background was like spoken word poetry and poetry slams and stuff like that. Getting back into that scene a little bit more. So doing more spoken word shows. And I think that'll be a big part of my future. Like, I think when I get into my, like, the second half of life, it gets to a point where you don't want to see a dude on stage rapping about whatever. I think, I'd love to put out a book of poetry, or dare I say even like a novel. Or, I mean, that seems like such a crazy undertaking, and it's scary to even say, but why not? Who knows? This story might be actually interesting to tell in long form, so maybe even something autobiographical. Everyone's trying to grow up so quick, right? And I wish I could have gone back and taken more risks, like been okay to fail more, been okay to just throw myself into different things and try it out, and not I wish I wasn't so afraid to, I don't know, risk it all, like socially put myself out there more, or adventure-wise, like just throw caution to the wind and leave, and that's okay, and fail and go broke when you're young, and and that's not a big deal. And I think especially, like, when you grow up in a way where if everything's not handed to you, if you don't grow up with, like, generational wealth or anything like that, your parents, they were doing everything they could to get by, and the message a lot of the time was be safe, like make sure you've got enough stored away, make sure you're doing all right, make sure everything's gonna be okay. And it's a very much like almost be afraid of the world mentality in a lot of ways. And I think a lot of the time kids need to be, you need the opposite of that. You need to not be afraid to lose it all, start again, all of those things, to really work out who you are and what's important to you, and just develop your personality. So yeah, if I could go back to my younger self, I think I'd say just take more risks. Don't be so scared of people. Don't be so scared of life. I mean, even wanting to be a musician and doing that, like bailing on journalism at uni and being like, no, I'm going to throw everything into music. Like, I'm glad I did that. But I think I could have done it in an even bigger way, or done it earlier than I did. Yeah. When I'm working with kids in workshops or whatever it is, always I want them to, I guess, realize who they are a bit more, what they care about a bit more, like be unafraid to be themselves, and whatever that looks like for them, Or I guess it's like more like, what is their value system, what makes them feel alive, and trying to bring that out of them a little bit more. So that would be part of the message for a bunch of kids, but for some maybe not so much. And you know, I mean, man, some of the kids, especially the at-risk kids that I work with, what they've been through, they've been to hell and back, you know, and just to, all they want is some stability, and just to, their whole life has been like people who threw caution to the wind, and they just want to feel safe and listened to, and so, you know, it's obviously it's different for them, but making them feel seen, I think, is what it comes down to. It's interesting because now that this health thing has happened to me, I talk about it quite a bit, and a lot of the times I worry that it's gonna define me, or it's what people are gonna think about when they think of me, and that scares me a little bit because I'm like, man, I'm so much more than going through that thing. But at the same time, it's one of those things that it is world shattering, and when people hear about it, they want to know about it, right? Like, I think those comeback stories are stories that we all need to hear to know that it's possible. Yeah, while I'm happy to talk about it, it's interesting, like having spoken to other people who have gone through similar health conditions or life-threatening health conditions or whatever it might be, still wanting that to not define who they are, or wanting to be seen for, you know, the other things they're passionate about, and you want to be, I think, even as I say it, it's like you're reminding yourself of it as well, because a lot of the time you can get caught up in like, oh, that's my story, that's the focal point, and it's not at the end of the day. I think it's a story of survival, you know, it's a comeback story.
Absolutely.